Hello, it's Gilgamesh again, and for www.overclockerstech.com. As you can see in my hands, we have a lid full of dry ice. Notice you can actually see the carbon dioxide coming off this. Now, before you actually do any carbon dioxide cooling, you must have adequate conditions. As you can see, the actual gas that's coming from this frozen carbon dioxide as it's subliming is sinking to the floor. This is because carbon dioxide is heavier than air. Therefore, you are going to need fans on the floor to push the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and make sure you're in a well ventilated room. If you feel any headaches, shakes, or your hands going blue, vacate the building immediately and get some fresh air. Myself and employees and sponsors of Overclockers Tech will not be responsible if you harm yourself by the use or misuse of frozen carbon dioxide. One of the things that frozen carbon dioxide that was used for was in the old horror films. So today we have a small cup of water and some pellets of dry ice. As you can see, if we mix the two, as you see, you see, and possibly here, you can see the actual carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide doesn't melt, rather it sublimes back from a solid into a gas. And this is how they actually used to do the actual horror films. As you can see, the carbon dioxide is boiling away into a gas, and this is what you see. So, people being the silly things on the internet that people being trying to make instant ice cream out of frozen carbon dioxide and cream. My recommendation is not to play about with a substance. It's more dangerous than liquid nitrogen, because if a drop of liquid nitrogen appears on your hand, your skin temperature will just simply boil it away into a gas. However, carbon dioxide is denser, even though it's not as cold, and if that's in your hand more than a couple of seconds, it will leave a nasty burn. Continuing our presentation, our amateur presentation on how to cool a computer with dry ice, i.e. sub-zero cooling in your computer. And once again, we point to the pot, which is available from Tech. We have your PSU connected up to your motherboard, all ready for dry ice cooling. In my hand, once again, I have a lid full of dry ice. Again, I heartily recommend you not handle this with your hands at all, under any circumstances. Right, now I've said that, we've got the obligatory health and safety out of the way, we can get back to cooling our computer. And dry ice cannot just simply be poured into the pot. It needs a medium to suspend it in order to cover as much surface area as possible. There's various different types of fluid you can use. You can actually use ethanol. Do not use methanol, that is poisonous. If you use ethanol, i.e. similar to what they use in alcohol, however, this has a limitation temperature of -25 before it freezes. You can use a better one to use, and sometimes I use this, is isopropyl alcohol. This doesn't freeze until -89, while dry ice is actually a -79. However, isopropyl thickens and it goes to a syrup-like substance around about -50, and this actually goes against the actual cooling of the actual product, because what happens is as it thickens, it's less efficient. The next thing we go is similar to what we use with to actually get rid of nail varnish from your fiance or your girlfriend's, if you're looking to have a girlfriend, nails. We have the acetone, which is essentially pure nail varnish remover. And if you'd like to have a closer look on this, you can see how little you actually get. And only a little goes a long way in cooling your computer. Now, if we go back to here, we can actually see, again, the dry ice pot. Notice, for health and safety reasons, before we add the medium into the pot, we have everything switched off. So if we like to open this, now as you're going to use this, it's going to stink to high heaven, so do not put your nose near this. The best thing to do, if you haven't got a funnel, simply use the cap to actually measure out the acetone. So we put a capful in the bottom. I recommend filling the bottom of the pot. If you like to come up and have a closer look at the pot, no more than 1/10 of the way at the top. So you may take a couple of capfuls. If you like to zoom back, just a couple of capfuls, and that should be enough to start off with. We'll give it one more capful, rather. As you can see, we have now filled the pot to about 1/10 of the way. I do not recommend you actually fill this pot up too high, otherwise when the dry ice is added, it's going to fizzle over the top, including the fluid, and totally ruin your hard-earned motherboard. Now, as you can see, we'll do the same for the pot, for the North Bridge. Once again, if we fill it up carefully, the cap up carefully, ideally, I would recommend you actually use a funnel for this. We'll put a few things in there, and as you can see, it's now done. So if we close the lid, always keep the lid closed for health and safety reasons of the acetone. Otherwise, you could spill it all over the motherboard, and you'll get quite high from the fumes of the acetone. Cool.